just so it's nice and neat. I hope everybody is well. I have been waylaid with yard work, and it rains and the grass grows super quick, and trying to maybe plan a few things. We'll see how it goes. And trying to I've been just punishing my body, trying to stay in shape, wanting to work, and hitting a wall with like every way I try to move and change my life, even with little things, is frustrating lately. So this video, to give you an idea of what it's about, that way you can maybe tune in later or fast forward or just kind of hang out with me, which would be nice too. I have found some unique information that I did not know was out there. It's rather obscure. But again, I found it in alleged mythology. Now, we know from our studies in etymology that mythology is simply the Greek word for history, when they had us all believing that it was fallacy, that they were legends that, weren't true. But now, hopefully after the last several years, everybody has come to understand that a lot of the things we've been told aren't true. And so I found this information, and we're going to talk about that in regards to Gog and Magog and the War of Gog and Magog. But again, I found this information in mythology. So let's dive into that. But first, I have to tell you a quick story time. That's going to be the first part of the video. It's not going to be as long as the second part. It is because it is relevant to current events and to possibly your own situation. All right. So I'm going to tell you how this went with me. It's real quick. But I mentioned this a little bit, and I have my journal here with me because I don't want to forget things that I want to remember to talk to you guys about. And then I'm also going to mark down the times. That way I can put timestamps in for when I stopped talking about water and we moved on to Gog and Magog. And also I might slip data set. I kind of have to talk about data centers a little bit in regards to the water in the current situation. And I'm also going to mention Wormwood, as you know from the title. So let's go ahead and kind of start there. So how this came to my attention, and if you know or if you're new here, for whatever reason, things that happen in my life and in my testimony, it's almost like I'm a beta test. They end up coming to the public in the world. And so I'm trying to use that. I'm trying to use these retro causalities, or what's happening in my life, to bring them to you. And maybe they can help you move better and navigate through these choppy waters of these strange times that we're living in. So the last job that I had, I told you guys, the pizza place, that I was harassed about the water line. Some man worked for the city company. Pretty sure he was one of the masons, because they all look the same. Sorry, guys, you do. They all have the bald head and the ears and the nose, and they just look the same. So he came in, started talking about, where's your water line? Where's your water line? I'm like, sir, I'm just an employee. I'm not a manager. I don't know where it's at. And I don't want you, he's like pushing his way behind the counter. And I'm like, I don't want you back here. I'm like, why don't you just call so-and-so? He works for you, the kid that looks just like JD Vance. I'm like, why don't you call him? And again, this has relevance. These elitists aren't who you think they are. They're never going to show you their real families. They're never going to show you their real faces. This has everything to do with your water and how to make sure that what you're drinking is safe. All right. So I was harassed about the water line, didn't know where it was. I was like, this is not my job. I don't feel comfortable. He was very pushy. Then he calls my personal cell phone, which I never gave him my last name. It's like a straight talk phone, so I don't even know if my name was attached to it. And I don't know how he got that number, but he's like, hey, I wanted to call you about that water line. Okay, whatever. So then I'm washing my linen, right? And actual linen. And I put my head covering on, or I put my little bedtime outfit on, and I'm like, I smell like clay. Why do I smell like clay? What is this smell? To be fair, then we had the pipes here are real funny. We a lot of the pipes around this area, there's been a lot of strange things happening with our water the last several years. Okay, so know that as well. So I'm like, my stuff smells like clay. And then yesterday, 2 days ago, I'm noticing the water's a little yellow. Now, we did have something clogged, and they came and used a snake, but he said it was in-house. It would have nothing to do with what was coming into the house. And enough time had passed as to where anything, air that was in the line or dirt that was in the line, would have already subsided. Okay? So I'm noticing that it smells like that, right? And God's been whispering in my ear the last several days. And now I'm not going to give you the whole message of what he said to me, because a lot of it was intertwined with a personal message, and I'm still trying to sort out that part of the message. But he is not happy, he is not pleased, but he never does a thing without telling his children. And so in regards to both data centers and what we read in scripture about wormwood coming from the sky, and falling into the sea and poisoning the waters, in regards to all of these things, in our day and age right now, it's the data centers, or whatever those really are, because I have serious doubts. We've been, again, the surveillance has been around since we were wee kids, and I've picked up to their revelation of the method and how they show us. And it has nothing to do with karma. These beings could care less about karma. They want you to believe in karma so that you feel like you have to keep coming back here and being their battery. We'll get into that another time. I believe Earth is our home. We are sovereign here. Do not forget that, all right? But there's a few different realms here. Okay. So basically, the instructions that I was given, and again, God is very, he's been very quiet the last couple of years, and it has everything to do with the fact that America especially is under judgment. It has everything to do with the genetic tinkering. It also has everything to do with, and you don't have to listen to me, go watch the movie Dominion. If you can watch that, and anyone who calls themselves a rocker or a metalhead or I can handle this, that, or the other, go watch the movie Dominion, and you'll start to understand. God is not pleased with how our society is built, and all the prophets of old told us, and we weren't understanding the actual message. And most people still don't, and it makes people very angry when I talk about this. I have faced severe, I'll call it spiritual warfare, the last week, sorting through or trying to sort through this message, and I came to the terms that it's not finished yet. God is just giving me these instructions because, again, he always tries to offer help. But as a whole, we are under judgment, and so he is very displeased, and rather heartbroken. But that's for another video. So here's the instructions. And I don't know if you guys are going to be able to do this. I don't know if anyone watching this is going to be able to do this. I don't know if my videos make it out beyond my town. I really have serious doubts about that. But I'm still supposed to witness to you too. So even if I don't make it out of the town, I'm still doing what I was asked to do. And I'll be very honest, I've been treated like crap. I've been called some false prophet. I've never called myself a prophet. I'm whatever God calls me. That's my identity. Whatever he says I am that day. We have free will. We have agency here. We have choice. I want you to understand that, because I didn't think I had a choice for so long. I let society, I let my mom, my dad, my grandparents' voices, even if I wasn't in contact with them, I let their voices interfere in my life and what I did in my own life. I want you to understand you have a choice, all right? And I know I'm a little wordy, but you have to be careful with these things. So here's what God said. And I've been doing this already I said, this message, I don't want to bring it. I don't think I'm leaving this town. These people, they don't want to hear these messages. They don't care about it. Whatever. So here's what God said. My children, to counteract wormwood, here are your instructions, and heed them and follow them. Now, not everybody's going to be able to do this. So it's like a checklist. There's if, so, and, okay? So this is what you need to do. First thing everybody should do, all the laity, every regular person, pray over your water. Now, when we say over your water, we don't mean actually stand over you can't do that, right? As big as your house is or your reservoir. That's not what we mean. We mean speak words over your water that are blessings. Now, what you need to do as a regular layperson, you need to go online and you need to because you can't move out of your authority in this. God has specific instructions for how this is to be done. So all of us, regular people, we need to pray over our own water supplies. Always pray over your food at meals, but we need to pray over our water. And to do this, you need to go online and get a blessing for lay people. Because again, you can't move outside of your authority in this. That's something everybody can do, though, whether it's your territory or not. And then you pray and you ask God and his angel of water to bless the water reservoir in your area or town. That's something everybody can do. For this to work properly, though, for best results, and God was very clear about this. Again, he wasn't wordy. He never is with me. And you know that if you watch the rest of my testimony. It's best to get an actual priest or a pastor or a minister who is not in sin. And I know, again, we're in strange times. We have people pretending to be pastors and priests, and they're not. And I did a video on that a while back about the pictures online at the diocese not matching the people that you meet. You can get any uniform on Amazon. There's a lot of that happening with cops, with state troopers, with ICE. It's everywhere. People are moving onto their authority, and because most people don't understand they have free will, they're just letting themselves be taken and done whatever with. These other people at this point are demonized, which means, and again, I don't say this to say, oh, you have no choice in the matter. I'm saying when they're doing certain things, we have the authority to stop it and rebuke it. And that's what these instructions regarding Wormwood are. You need to rebuke Wormwood. You need to rebuke, poison water. You need to pray a blessing over your own water. But if possible, for best results, a holy person. It can be a priest. It can be a pastor. It can be a minister. But it has to be someone holy. What does holy mean? Doesn't mean perfect in action. That's not even what a saint means. That's not what holy means. Holy means set apart from, right? You're not having these certain other things touch you and make you impure. We're not supposed to hide under a bushel, but these are different times. We move differently, and we should navigate these choppy waters differently depending on the times that we are in. So, a holy person, priest, minister, preferably somebody of the cloth. But if you know that you don't have access to that and you don't have a holy person, but you have access to your own reservoir, or you work for the water department, or you're a director, you have authority. So then you get yourself a holy person. I don't care if it's a TI like me, someone who's just set aside, someone who fasts, someone who prays, someone who knows how to pray a blessing, and someone who is baptized in the name of Jesus Christ. That is who needs to be blessing the actual water supply, the wells, the reservoirs. If we want to combat wormwood, and this isn't going to work in all cases, because again, we are under judgment, but by all means, something we can all do, because I know that I'm not popular and my channel doesn't get pushed out, so chances are it's not going to get to somebody in authority. But something we can all do is pray over our own water and then ask God and his angel of water to bless our actual water supply in your county, your town, however your village is broken up. So that's one part of this message or this video. And now we're going to move to something a little more fun, but and for best results, it should be done at this point once a month. Okay. Again, I have more of an actual message coming with that, but I don't think it's time yet because it's not done percolating. Like, I can't hear the whole thing yet, so it's not ready. I can't force God to give me things, right? Like, it's all in his time. Okay, so at the end of this video, I might do a story time just regarding my testimony, because again, I think this area is going to become very prevalent for things that we're seeing happen. I think that there are certain powerful families who live in this area. So that's why I relate certain personal bits of my story to you. And it's also to show you all the synchronicities, all the things that are occurring. Okay, so Gog and Magog and Alexander the Great. Did you know? Because I did not know. Let's check this out. I need to first, hold please. Yes, I know. Okay, so there's a story, which is fascinating, guys. It's called, from the Alexander Romance. There's a bit from it. There's a part from it that, well, actually a big part of it. The core narrative comes from the Alexander Romance. Blah, 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 blah. Let's start over. The core narrative comes from the Alexander Romance, a collection of fantastical tales about Alexander's exploits. In this version, Alexander chases his enemies to a narrow pass between two peaks, two mountains, in the Caucasus, known as, quote, the breasts of the world, end quote. This is where we get into some fun stuff because I'm going to take this somewhere that I don't think it's been taken, and also I've not seen anyone. I came up with it on accident. So again, nobody believes it, but we know that mythology simply means history in Greek. Okay, so in Alexander chases his enemies, which are the Titans, guys. They are the giants. They are the family and the bloodlines of the Rephaim, the Nephilim, and the relations of Gog. Isn't he the brother of the giant that David faced? I think. I could be wrong. Okay, so he chases them to this pass in between two mountains. It's a narrow way, guys. That's why I said everything has more than one meaning. It's so amazing that the Bible is also a map. I think that's so cool. So he chases them to this place called, it's known as the breast of the world. So we're going to kind of play with that terminology and dig into that, but not yet. There he decides to imprison the, quote, unclean nations. Why, guys? Because Nephilim evil spirits are called what? Unclean spirits. Okay, unclean nations of the north, including Gog and Magog, behind a huge wall of steel or adamantine. With divine aid, he and his men closed the pass, sealing the barbarians out of the civilized lands. There's way more to this, and we're going to dive in right now. But I wanted you guys to know that right now I'm using Edge, because I want to see if I get different results than I normally get on Google. Sorry, I'm sticking. Okay, so check this out. Where something was playing in the background, right? And I'm kind of like, I listen to a lot of lectures, like religious lectures, Harvard, that type of stuff. I'm a geek, I don't know. So I'm listening to this lecture, and they mention the Quran. And the Quran this is why they want us divided. This is why they don't want you looking at it. Just because you read it doesn't mean you're going to turn Muslim. But you might have a more complete story. If I were Satan, you know what I would do? If God gave us one holy book, a book of instructions for the book of life and how to get through it, I would have tore it up too and tossed it asunder to all these different tribes. And then each one only has part of it, part of the story, in their own language. See what I'm saying? But anyways, we got to talk about the Tower of Babel more because that story still bothers me. I don't know why the true God would be mad about, there's something there that I'm missing. Okay, so the same motif appears in the Quran. The Surah Al-Kahf, it's 1883 through 98, where the hero, I'm sorry if I butcher this, Karnain, often identified with Alexander. So the hero of this story in the Quran is called Dul Karnain, who they say that's an alias for Alexander the Great. He builds a barrier to protect the people at the foot of the mountains from Gog and Magog. This shows the story's long-standing place in both Christian and Islamic apocalyptic thought. Why is no one talking about this? Why are all these people doing the short season of Satan and Gog and Magog? Nobody's hitting on this. Why is some girl who has no schooling in any of this putting this stuff together, but these other people can't? I have to talk about the Old Testament at some point too, because they're trying to put us back in the Old Testament. You cannot follow people who go viral. Listen to that word, viral. What do we identify that with in the material world? That's not a good word. Viral. It's viral. I caught it from him, her, or them. It's viral. You see what I'm saying? I caught that idea because that's viral. They go viral because they're pushing some type of agenda. Sometimes, yes, God, I believe, will raise a person. But I'm seeing a couple really popular Christian channels talking and going in a line with like this Abraham Accord and how we have to go back to the Old Testament. There's nothing wrong with the Ten Commandments. But if we want, that's the law. They want to take us back to Levitical law. There's a curse under that. Paul tells us it's a curse. Please stop watching Christians who are pushing that. It's not the way. We have Christ now, guys. He is the cure. Just like these people doing TI channels saying that they're Christians, the first part of that word has Christ in it, right? All these people saying, well, we're under a curse. They did this destiny swapping curse. Christ breaks every curse. There's nothing higher. There is no name higher. Right? Hi. God bless you. Okay, so let's get back on track. We see Alexander the Great appear in the Quran. Now it says he's in biblical. Well, they're saying that Gog and Magog are in the biblical apocrypha. Okay, so no archaeological, allegedly, but here's where Jen did some digging because I love maps. While no archaeological evidence confirms Alexander built such a gate, his campaigns did bring him to the Caucasus, and he did establish fortifications in the region. Now, again, I have actual links pulled up. This is just the AI summary. So, Josephus in the 1st century, he described Alexander sealing iron gates in the Caucasus to block Scythian tribes descended from Magog. Okay? Now, I find it interesting that it's iron. We've talked a lot about that. And again, yes, Christ breaks everything. He is our protection. However, there are still things that we have here. I wear glasses, right? Because I still have poor vision. For whatever reason, there are certain things, tools that we're still needing to use. So I do, balance. A lot of this requires balance. Iron, and especially back then, because they're dealing with a lot, kind of like we are in this time. Iron repels certain types of beings. We've talked about that in relation to a lot of this. And gates have been a big part of my I forgot a big part of my own testimony. In 2018, and I couldn't figure out which gates he was talking about. Pockets of the Future talked about it back then, but in 2018, Tom Hanks was doing a speech, a whatever it is speech, when they get an award. He was doing an award speech on stage for the Grammys, and Charlize Theron was beside him in a green dress. Green is a big color. Quantum of Conscience, Matt knows that. So green, it actually means resurrection. That's one of the things that it stands for. But she's in a green dress, Charlize Theron and Tom Hanks. And Tom Hanks, out of nowhere, doing his acceptance speech, says this twice. The gates are open. The gates are open. He smiled very big, and Charlize Theron had this like duper's delight. She got on her knees on stage and like hugged herself because she was like giggling so much. What gates was he talking about? Some of us thought Stargate. Some of us thought, and Pockets again. They like to poke. See, I ruin their fun. That's why they don't like me. Pockets, if you've ever seen, I think he took the picture down on his website. He's a very big man. Very big. He's very tall individual. And again, there are progeny here who will be very happy if these are the gates they were talking about and Gog and Magog have been let out. But why aren't we seeing it? Why aren't we seeing evidence of this? First of all, this would be one reason they're not allowing flights, is because when you get up high and you can see above the paradigm, you can see what's going on down below. In 2019, right before CV, in China, the Aleppo satellite went down purposely. You could see the wire snap, and it was like there was this thing there breaking things, but you couldn't see. You could just see things breaking, but you couldn't see the being, whatever it was. All of these things go together. So Tom Hanks saying the gates are open, is he talking about this? Now, one more thing that you're going to see here when we get into the actual links. I have a theory that the gates themselves are so old at this point, right? Iron would oxidize, would it not? That these gates would look like a mountain range. So you would have two peaks with then something in between, like the gate, but it wouldn't look like a gate. Or another theory, because this is actually more than likely true, they're trapped underground. So if you ever saw the movie Titanic, how all the poor people were like trapped in the lower levels, and they had the gates, right, that closed and locked them down there. That's why they drowned. So these gates, the Gog and Magog gates, what if they're not just above ground, but they're underground too? Because it says, the story actually says that these giants were trapped underground. That might be also why we're not seeing anything, but we're hearing a lot about disturbances in these tunnels. It also might be why we don't want to see certain rivers dry up, because once those rivers dry up, these beings will be able to cross those borders. Water stops these beings. Okay? I know Richie said from Boston said he thinks they're going to use the data center water for like portals. They don't really need those, number one. You don't need those. Okay? You don't need a portal. They're already here. Demons are already here. We just have the veil hiding us, right? So they're already wandering around. All right? Gog and Magog, though, those are fleshly beings who were trapped for God knows how long, may have procreated down there, and also live extended lives. So these are some things I wanted to point out as we look at this. One more thing. I actually made a note on this. The Bible talks all the time about the four corners, the four corners, the four corners. Listen to me for a second and hear me. God knew ahead of time when his Holy Spirit inspired scriptures to be written. He knew ahead of time what was coming and what was going to happen. They knew which words were going to be big and trending. Just like destruction always follows pride. Pride didn't just mean pride of like self, like elevation. Those prophets could have seen all these prideful flags and pride signs and said, oh my gosh, look what they're doing, and then they saw what happens after that. Okay? Because that part is Sodom and Gomorrah. That's one of the reasons we're under judgment. The other one is our lack of charity, and the other one is our system is built itself on suffering and the exploitation of suffering and of sentient beings. God knows that we're going to suffer here. It's part of the refinement. He suffered too when he was here as a human. It's part of the refinement process. But when we are forcefully forcing our will on other sentient beings, and our system is built on blood, sweat, tears, and lives of not just humans but animals too, of sentient beings, and it's exploiting pain and it's exploiting suffering. I saw a video yesterday of spouses and partners who knock their wives out with roofie drugs so that they can then stream them and have people tell them what to do with them. And one of the wives started coming on to the fact of what was going on because she woke up with bruises all the time. That's how I started becoming aware of things going on to me. You have to understand, we're here with some devious people at this time. Devious. They don't care about your consent. This is why you need to learn to wield it appropriately. Don't just give it out. Okay? All right, so the legend is often linked to real fortification. The Caspian Gates of Derbent, which is in modern Dagestan, is a Sassanid-era fortress complex. The Great Wall of Gorgon, Red Snake, is in northern Iran. That's interesting, considering current events. And the Darial Gorge in the Caucasus with Byzantine-era fortifications. So those are a few real-world places they're saying that have things in common with. But they're still saying that the stories of Alexander the Great are just myth. And again, I would urge you, mythology simply means history in Greek. All right? Very true, well said. Thank you so much, and thank you for being here. So AI's gaslighting me. It's telling me right off the bat that these are fake stories, but we're going to look at some stuff, and I want you to check it out with me. Now, what I'm saying is how God knows ahead of time what's going to be in Scripture. A lot of these phrases and things could mean something that a lot of prophecy is unfolding differently than we thought it would. Point in case, the four corners comes up again in this story. I want to pose a question to you, and I would love to start a conversation on this. Do you think the four corners is the four corners of the earth, like the map, like the actual? Because I think we have four corners, I do, but like we're under a dome-like structure, and we're more of a pancake, and then we have like some edges to hold us in because we're beloved. Um, I have the picture up there, so I keep looking at it. Or do you think when the Bible talks about the four corners, it means the four corners in America? Because how many times, the Hopi prophecy, all the stuff we've talked about the real tribes. What do you think? Do you think that's possible? This excites me because these are the truths. Like when you can physically see evidence of certain things, you can really start to build on that. Because a lot of us had our trust broken, and we have to rebuild ourselves, and we have to rebuild at the paradigm that our mindset is creates or is living in. We have to rebuild our own reality in a way. But truth matters. Truth is important. And again, mythology, I think, just means history in Greek. Gog and Magog. Now, this is from the Encyclopedia Britannica, but check this out. In the Hebrew Bible, the prophesied invader of Israel and the land from which he comes, respectively, or in the Christian scriptures, evil forces opposed to the people of God. Although biblical references to Gog and Magog are relatively few, they assumed an important place in apocalyptic literature and medieval legend. They are also discussed in the Quran and also in the Yeuj and the Mayuj. I might have said that wrong. I apologize. Okay. So, and now this is to give us a little bit of background. We'll get back to Alexander in 1 second. Biblical accounts and interpretations. In 1 Chronicles 5:4, a man named Gog is identified as a descendant of the prophet Joel, which is wild. In Ezekiel, and again, we have, and I know saints that are sainted by people, like we wonder if that counts, but Saint Christopher, who helped the baby Jesus across the river because he just wanted to do something to be helpful. So Jesus turned himself back into a child to let him help him. He wanted to be saved. And people were afraid of him because he was big. He was saved. I thank Saint Christopher. So Bible says preach the gospel to all creatures. We know that the fallen ones, they're in a place of holding until their judgment, because I believe we judge them. This is why some of them are trying to make us go round and round on this hamster wheel or on this merry-go-round now, because they don't want that to happen. Okay. So in Ezekiel 38:39, he is the chief prince of the tribes of Meshach and Tubal. Tubal-Cain is a big idol in Mormonism, and they do this thing called, and I've talked about it, the Mahan sacrifice. If you end a family member, you can get whatever you want. And again, they have a lot of truth. The Mormons actually do have some truth, and that's why it's dangerous, because behind it, it's a lot of ritualistic, secretive practices that are anti-God. There are certain things that God is very against. But that's interesting to note. Okay, so Meshach and Tubal in the land of Magog, who was called upon by God to conquer the land of Israel with a great coalition of forces from throughout the world. Gog and his entire army will invade Israel, quote, like a cloud covering the earth, end quote. I wonder if that means like the sun will, if it will actually if that's when interesting. Okay. And will plunder and loot the cities. God, however, will send terrible natural disasters that will destroy Gog and his forces. The defeat of Gog will demonstrate the greatness and holiness of God and restore good relations between God and his people, which is awesome. In the revelation to John, the names Gog and Magog are applied to the evil forces that will join with Satan in the great struggle at the end of time. Hold, please. Somebody pointed this out, and I've talked about this before. Didn't go viral when I said it, of course, but as long as the message is getting out there and the butterfly effect is working. But you're not supposed to be monetizing these messages, and I've said that over and over. Okay, so the seed of Satan. In scripture, we're given like specific directives of where the seed of Satan is. And this young man broke it down, and he was correct. It's in Sweden, guys. It's in Geneva, where CERN is the seat of Satan. It's also where the UN is, along with 33 or 32 plus 1, 33 organizations like the WEF, the WHO, the UN. They're all began in Geneva, Sweden. And that's where we saw those rituals take place, the ritual of the tunnel. Guys, this is big. So if that is, in fact, Satan's seat, and they join forces with Satan, let's go back, hold, then the Caspian Gates of Derbent or the Dario Gorge in the Caucasus. However, did you know that there's also an LHC in America? A couple of them now. And again, I wonder at all this water that they need, because water acts as a border. If you've ever watched any ghost hunting or anything, and I don't recommend it because it's fake, and they say it can get you into like idolatry and stuff. I'm not going to say it can't, but it's fake, obviously. However, they have some truthful information. One of the things is that water is a conductor, yes, but it's also a boundary. This is why castles back in the day had moats around them, because, again, they were more open. They understood the spirit realm. They understood spiritual warfare. Certain spiritual elements cannot cross bodies of water. Certain witches, if they're far enough in their craft, they won't bathe, flat out. I'm not even kidding. They won't bathe. They will not go over bridges. They won't even do that. So understand that water can act as a border or a boundary as well. And anyone that's living on an island at this time is probably might be in a good position, we'll say. Okay, so they join forces with Satan at the struggle at the end of time. After Satan has been bound and chained for 1,000 years, he'll be released and will rise up against God. He will go forth and deceive the nations of the world, which is interesting because what did we read in the beginning of the story? That Gog and Magog were called unclean nations. Nations, a group of people. Okay? We got to get out of our head these boundaries in land, because they don't look the way we've been told. Look at all the different maps that are out there and all the different cartography. Okay. Gog and Magog, gathering them together in great numbers to attack the saints and Jerusalem, the city God loves. God will send fire from heaven to destroy them and will then preside over the last judgment. I also noticed that city is used interchangeably in scripture. I've not heard this addressed either. It's used interchangeably with country, city and country. I don't know why, but again, our words are different. And would it be New Jerusalem, right? Because you have New Jerusalem, then the 1,000 years. So is the original Jerusalem made new? And I found more interesting notes or information on what you call it too, guys. Joshua Tree. Okay, let's go down a little bit, and then we're going to go to another link and read a little more. Okay, one of the most important legends associated with Gog and Magog was that of Alexander's Gate, said to have been built by Alexander the Great. Now, you get into some supernatural elements too, because it wasn't built by just him. Just like Solomon had help with his temple, Alexander had help with his gate to imprison these uncivilized and barbaric people until the end of time. And what are we at now? The end of an age. In medieval legends of Antichrist and the last emperor, Gog and Magog are allied with the armies of Satan, and in various prophetic texts, Gog and Magog participated, they act like it's already happened, in the persecutions led by the Antichrist. I would agree with that. Just from my own testimony, the people that have given me a problem, and again, they show you the revelation of their method, people with teeth problems, double rows of teeth, very, very tall individuals, understand they have an extra chromosome, right? And I'm not trying to bully or pick on or anything, because I've had my own physical issues, And it's hard to be in pain all the time. But these are physical traits of these beings, of the ones who were made by the hybrids, okay, the angels and the women. But they have these problems, and so I would agree that they are doing covert persecution at this time. And again, understand that we're also dealing with not just physical beings, but beings, because they have this extra chromosome, maybe have different abilities than us, but also there are unclean spirits who still don't have a body, right? And again, this is why I'm not aligned with cloning, because it's gone so mainstream. I don't think an actual clone, in the way that we talk about it, would be allowed to exist for very long without spirit, unless you get one of those unclean spirits into it. But they never needed, they have human bodies for that. Just like they don't need a chip, guys. All they need is your consent and to invade your vessel. All this other stuff is just window dressing to scare people. But the seal of God and the seal of Satan, those are the marks. Those are the marks. Okay, and I'm not saying there isn't going to be a spiritual one, but I'm saying the ones that really matter are the spiritual ones. Or, I'm not saying there isn't going to be a material one, but the one that really matters in our salvation and our walk is the spiritual seal of God. Okay. In various prophetic texts, Gog and Magog participate in the persecutions led by the Antichrist, preceded Antichrist as a sign of his coming, or emerged following the defeat of Antichrist in the struggle prior to the Last Judgment. Okay, so that's a lot there. That's a lot of word salad. The problem there is the Antichrist has a head wound, and then he is the Antichrist, and then he's revealed. It's like these, the days of Noah keeps repeating. And so you have the tribulation and the short season of Satan, which are going to look almost identical, especially to us who are in it. We're supposed to walk the same no matter what. It is helpful to know when we are. I realize that. But we're supposed to maintain no matter what happens. And endure until the end, right? And God also, he wants us to be victorious. Walk in that victory. Walk in nobody can take you off the streets. Nobody can take you out of your home unless you don't understand how to wield this, the sword of the Spirit. And keep truth on your sword, which is your tongue. Keep it truthful. And you won't have to worry. It'll be almost smooth sailing. You're going to face stuff, right? But it won't be as bad. Okay. So the problem I'm seeing here is the Antichrist then. He's the Antichrist in the tribulation. He gets a head wound in the tribulation, like he dies. And then 1,000 years passes, and then the Antichrist comes back with Satan's reemergence. Am I understanding that right? I always, some of the timeline, again, because I've had interference in my life and because time has always been different for me, I experience a lot of retrocausality, like the White Queen in Alice in Wonderland. Like, that's my life. I experience like effects first, and I'm like, oh gosh, something's gonna happen because I'm crying. Whatever it is hasn't happened yet, or I don't know about it yet. But then something happens, and I realize, oh, that's why I'm sad today, because this is anyways, for me, time is different, so it's hard for me to discern what they're meaning there. Does the Antichrist get his head wound at the end of the tribulation? Or is that what signifies he is the Antichrist mid-tribulation? Because I'm wondering, does he come back with Gog and Magog? Is he also there? All right, an independent legend of Gog and Magog surrounds two colossal wooden effigies. Oh, wow, that's crazy. In Guildhall, London, they are thought to represent two giants who were taken to London to serve as porters at the gate of the royal palace after their race was destroyed by Brutus the Trojan, the legendary founder of London. Troia Nova, or New Troy. I didn't know that's what they called London. New Troy? Now, really? Effigies of Gog and Magog have existed in London from the time of Henry V. Gee, I wonder why. The first figures were destroyed in the Great Fire of 1666 and were replaced in 1708. The second pair was destroyed in a German air raid in 1940 and again replaced in 1953. Were they destroyed or were they fighting a war? Did they come to life? It just makes you wonder, doesn't it? Okay, and the legends recounted by the medieval English historian Geoffrey of Monmouth, Gog and Magog, or Gog Magog, was a giant chieftain of Cornwall who was slain by Brutus's companion Quirinius. So they're saying that some of it's already happened. Okay, the last book of the New Testament, the Revelation of Jesus Christ by John, or John's Revelation, the Apocalypse of John, sorry. It is the only book of the New Testament classified as apocalyptic rather than didactic or historical, indicating thereby its extensive use of visions, symbols, and allegory, especially in connection with future events. Revelation of John appears to be a collection of separate units composed by unknown authors who lived during the last quarter of the first century. I would disagree with that, though it purports to have been written by an individual named John, who calls himself the servant of Jesus at Patmos, where he was exiled, in the Aegean Sea. The text includes no indication that John of Patmos and St. John the Apostle are the same person. Do they need to say that? Okay, so we're going to skip that part, and we're going to go to something else I found. Now this is wild. This is from the Pacific Standard. I'll go ahead and include the link after the video. This is how Alexander the Great used genies to build a great wall. They also add fairies in here, guys. It's wild. This is from October 27th, 2015 by Asher Cohn. Interesting name. Okay. What ancient myth can teach us about demonization, xenophobia, and the comforting fiction of a wall? My son came to me before all this started, and again, I believe he was indoctrinated differently. That's why the spouse wanted him to stay home probably at a certain point to educate him about his true roots, which I was not told anything about. But he asked me, Mom, do you know who built the Great Wall of China? Do you know who the Mongolians were? He's like, they say they are giants, Mom. And this is when he was young. He was like 14 or 15, maybe, something like that. My oldest. And, you file stuff away like that. Because I'm like, I didn't know he paid attention in school that much. That's really cool. And then so I started looking. I'm like, wow, they were giants. That's why the wall is so big. Like you got to read. The internet was given to us, but you don't know what to look for if you don't know what to look for. Okay. There's an image here, which I will include too. The scene looks like a Technicolor Mordor. Red and yellow beasts, hunched like men but sporting leopard spots, and feline tails are baking jet black bricks. Interesting. Human masons are working with tools, expressions of worry and focus under their work hats. At the center is something that looks like an albino armadillo, but with horns the color of fire, wearing jewelry of gold and a look of complete exhaustion. Our scaly white friend is making a black brick wall between two mountains. And that's what the Caucasus are, allegedly. But again, I'm starting to look in America for this stuff. And there's a reason. I have enough to back it up, I think, at this time. A kingly man looks on, explaining the scene to two other men whose heads are wreathed in flames. The three are in a tent enjoying a plate of pomegranates while they discuss the black wall, the white armadillo-ish creature, and other laborers. The royal is Alexander the Great, as depicted by a Persian miniaturist in the 1500s. The conqueror of Asia, boy genius, and presumed pansexual, is overseeing the construction of a magic wall. Alexander the Great was a historical figure, but just barely. When he died in 323 BCE at the age of 32, and as king of an empire that stretched from modern-day Greece to Pakistan, he was considered by many of his contemporaries as something of a god. And we do that a lot. We deify ourselves a lot. The Alexander Romance, a fabulous chronicle of acts. Oh wait, hold please. In just over 3 decades of life, when he was just over 32, Alexander sowed the seeds of a vast legend. The Alexander Romance a fabulous chronicle of the acts of both heroic and magical, includes one particularly outlandish bit of history. Alexander, the legend goes, built a wall to keep all the evil out of the Middle East. This magic wall, built with the help of magical beings, was meant to save man's order from unspeakable death at the hands of malevolent demons. If it is in the Middle East, or what we know to be the Middle East, could this be why so many Brits and so many not born in America are now fleeing here? The Alexander of the Persian romances is much more colorful than his Western counterpart, explains Minu Southgate, a professor of English at Baruch College, in a 1977 article. Southgate analyzes the Book of Alexander, an 1194 tract that describes the historical king in superhero terms, a peerless warrior and an ardent lover of travel and of women. The Persian Alexander visits the land of gold, fighting off enormous bees. He marries a pious hermitess, check this out, reasoning that it will have him, quote, made in both worlds, end quote. Meaning he's already got it made in this world, he needs somebody to advocate for him in the spiritual world, which is why he married a pious hermitess. And later, check this out, he adds a fairy princess to his harem. So apparently he married a fairy princess. It's all riveting stuff, and as ridiculous as it may read today, one can empathize a bit with the romance's pre-modern audience. And for things like fairy and whatnot, I would say if this story does have truth in it, then it came from, like, fairy would just be another word for those, hybrids, for another bloodline. Okay, most important for the credibility of the romance, it had the backing of God. The Quran tells the story of the dual Qarnayn in Surah 18, dual Qarnayn, quote, and this is what's key too, the two-horned one. In the prophecy of Daniel, don't they talk about somebody with two horns? We've got the 10 horns, but isn't there one with two in there? Again, my memorization of da-da-da-da isn't great. The two-horned one. So that's another word or another name for Alexander. They call him the two-horned one. I wonder why. He comes across people in a valley with whom he can barely communicate, who beg him to protect them from Gog and Magog, who, quote, are spoiling the land, end quote. Duo Qarnayn builds an iron wall that will keep, and again, if he actually married, quote unquote, a fairy princess, we'll just insert another bloodline there. Fairies know a lot about iron, and fairies actually, like, that iron is a repellent, allegedly, according to fables. Iron is a repellent of fairies. So I find it interesting that he chose that, but maybe she knew, hey, they have hybrid blood, I have hybrid blood, they won't be able to get through if you make it an iron gate, okay? It was considered a noble deed attributed by contemporaneous Jewish and Christian sources to Alexander. So they want to keep Gog and Magog out into the end of times. This mysterious horned man who comes in the Quran with moral force is, according to most scholars, Alexander the Great. Muslim Persian writers of the Alexander romance could point to their hero's appearance, the equivalent of a guest track in the Holy Book. What's more, it is difficult even today to comprehend the extent of Alexander's impact on history. Historians confirm that Alexander defeated Darius III and burned Persepolis to ashes, a ruin that can still be seen today. Silver coins bearing Alexander's face and cities named in his honor crop up in the most unexpected of places. It seems petty to stand in awe of Alexander's historical accomplishments, but then to scoff at the myths that came in their wake. Alexander's conquest of Persia came nearly 1,000 years before the advent of Islam. That leaves a long time for history, legend, and pure fabrication to mix. The task of trying to sort out which is which deserves no small degree of imagination. Now again, I would bring that all back to Scripture and all back to what we're finding out in this day and age about what we've been told about our own history. And what we know now, that this place is ruled by powers and principalities, that the last tribe of giants settled in Washington, D.C., that Mr. Biden had his picture taken with the previous president, who actually passed away shortly after that. I want to say the Carters, but I could be wrong. And they were giants. They could do a lot of trickery with film and with cameras. There's a reason some of our parents said, you'll never make it in Hollywood. You'll never make it in show business. You have to be one of them. You have to be one of them. Okay. Here we go. But all this discussion of Alexander's legendary daring do prompts the question, who were Gog and Magog that they could terrify a man as bold as Alexander? What could make a world conqueror go on the defensive? Most keepers of the romance identify Gog and Magog with basic inhumanity. But again, they were called unclean spirit, and we know what that means. A source from the 800s states that they are cannibals. Well, we knew that already, didn't we? And that is at the bottom of every rabbit hole, cannibals. Even worse, those Gog and Magog eat puppies and kittens. Now, again, some people today say one is identifying a tribe or a series of beings, and another one is identifying the place that they come from. Okay? But different sources use those words in different ways. Do your own study to seek that out. I'm not the one yet. I'm still looking into it myself. That's why we study together here. Thank you guys for being here, those of you that are still here. Okay. A modern historian, Adam Silverstein, connects Muslim descriptions of Gog and Magog to the epic of Gilgamesh. And there was a lot of good research done saying that he is the Antichrist that they are trying to resurrect. Gilgamesh, who was also Nimrod, who was probably also Nero, which reminds this reader of Lovecraft's The Great Old Ones, who harbored an unfathomable evil. Think back to that Persian miniature with its jaguar people and its shiny armadillo, those flaming heads, and yes, those ripe pomegranates. They have that picture here. Maybe I'll use it on the thumbnail. I don't know. People might not understand what it's supposed to represent. It is a wild piece of art. Okay. Those are the good guys, these hybrids, they're saying. They are also terrified, and they are prepared to bunker down until the end of days to build a wall of iron and coat it with lead. Why do you think they took lead paint out of all our stuff? Why are they going to coat it with lead? Does it stop these things from moving certain ways? Access? Does it stop access to your home? Now again, today we have Christ, and we know that you can have a cross and things like that and pray over your house, of course. But when God tells us to do a thing, if we have extra help, there's nothing wrong with having a little iron around in your house. Have a cross made out of iron, possibly. Okay. It says, those are the good guys, the ones that are the hybrids, and they're terrified, and they're prepared to bunker down and to build a wall of iron coated with lead rather than face Gog and Magog. Who are the devils that terrify even Alexander's own demons and genies? So again, he's like Solomon. You could kind of equate him to the same archetype as Solomon, right? Because he has these other forces doing his bidding. Because again, he knows his own sovereignty. Christ could do that with the demons if he wanted to. Build this, build that, da-da-da-da-da-da. He chose not to because he was Christ is humble. God doesn't ever make you worship him. He doesn't want us to idolize him because he knows where that leads to our own harm. Because these beings, once you give them access, they will destroy your life, not give you better lives. They will destroy it. Okay, so I'm going to butcher this. Iskandharema, which imagines all manner of beings whom Alexander either wooed or pillaged, is uncharacteristically bland in describing the creatures excluded by the wall. The text says they are Russians. Why is it always wicked Russians? Come on, man. Putin just outlawed Luciferianism. He just outlawed Satanism. Give it a rest. This may be a result of what counted for geographical rigor in the 1100s. The Nema's author hailed from a city in what is now Azerbaijan. I always mess this word up. I'm not great. I'm not even going to lie. I'm not great with the Middle East names. I'm so sorry, guys. Azerbaijan, whatever, a few hundred miles southeast of the fortress of Derbent. So that's where there's one assumption that his gate is this fortress of Derbent. Sitting high in the Caucasus Mountains, the fortress sealed the Persian-speaking world behind the Caucasus from the vast plains to the north. The Romance attributes the fortress to Alexander. In fact, it was built by Persian kings in the 6th century. Beyond the wall lay the Mongols. I was just telling you about the Mongolians, who seemed properly chastened. But beyond these horsemen were people who could reputedly defeat Mongols in a land war. In this case, it was Russians. But the Iskander Nema would develop a more universal trope for its iconic terrors. Gog and Magog were the people that the scariest people were afraid of. The pair constituted a sort of eschatological Kaiser Soze. In the centuries that followed, Gog and Magog became political boogeymen. That's true even today. Persian shahs would tell their people that they must keep out of the rival Ottomans or scheming Romanovs, lest the old demons return. Gog and Magog had a star turn in the 1970s. As governor of California, Ronald Reagan used these harbingers of the end times as avatars for communism. Oh, that's funny. We're just like repeating history over and over, and it's maddening that everybody's just so. People legit seem hypnotized now. Like, even people that I knew who were very smart, like, they don't even hear what you're saying to them. Their chunks of their memory are missing. They don't remember things that they say, which are totally out of character. I don't know what else to relate it to other than demon possession, but it's something spiritual and neurological. Like, it's manifesting in some type of neurological way. Okay. So this is funny to me that Ronald Reagan decided to bring this back. One could argue that once Reagan became president, Star Wars was his wall and the crumbling USSR was his demon. You have Trump doing that same trope today. And again, that's because what's really behind what really rules the principalities are the powers of the air, right? But that's only if you vote and you participate. They have no control over us. Like, that's what so many people don't get. Now, you don't want to tell everybody that because laws keep people in line who would hurt law. Not everybody needs a law to tell them not to do harm, right? But the beings who do want to do harm, they need a law so that the scariness of jail keeps them from harming people who aren't going to break those laws anyway. That probably doesn't make a lot of sense. If you don't participate in the system, you maintain your sovereignty. If you participate in the system, then you are subject to a lot of the things that they do within the system, like detain you, take you off the streets, kidnap you, and throw you in a cell. And I don't care. Like, at this point, what's happening is kidnapping. It's not the way it used to be. People that are innocent, innocent until proven guilty. Everybody's making, like, judgments about each other. There is no forgiveness. These cop shows, again, are huge. Men love seeing the women get abused and hurt in these videos. Like, that's all my household watches. Seeing how men are with women today and seeing how young women are with themselves, it's frightening. That's why I do what I do, because I attributed to that. I contributed to that in a not good way. So I want people to be prepared for what's coming and what I believe has already started to come on the earth. I believe that you can hear them louder, right? We're warned about that all through scripture, that demons have a voice, and that humans, being a receiver like a radio, we can pick up different frequencies, and that can affect us, right, in our own behavior, and it can manifest in a seemingly neurological way. I'm not a doctor. No part of this is medical advice. I'm using logic, right, and my basic common sense. Okay. Today, of course, there's no shortage of candidates for comparison to Gog and Magog. Quote, Gog and Magog was used in history to describe the forces that have usually caused mass migration, end quote. According to Ali Karju-Raveri, a scholar of religious studies at the University of Pennsylvania, this is key for what's going on right now. Again, BLM didn't mean Black Lives Matter. It meant Bureau of Land Management. Revelation of the method. They're telling us, but they're telling us in ways, by the time we understand what they mean, it's too late. And that's part of Agenda 2030. I don't still have that document, but it flat out said that. We will reverse their language so by the time they figure it out, it will be too late. That was in there. I read it on a video on the original channel. Okay. He says the wall was thus usually identified with something that kept steppe peoples outside of the urban centers. That marked medieval Persia. Karju-Ravari's steppe peoples were the nomadic Turkic communities that gradually converted to Islam but continued to flood into Persia and later Anatolia. Karju-Ravari admits that most Persians saw these horsemen as the evil itself, but some onlookers were more sympathetic. Quote, another perspective would have seen them as the refugees from turmoil on the steppes. And again, that's all perspective. People are still arguing about the same things. Tastes great, less filling, as far as migration and immigration goes. So Gog and Magog could be interpreted as refugees. That's their opinion, not mine, but I'll keep reading. Gog and Magog could be interpreted as refugees from social strife in a faraway land. In this understanding, it's not their eating habits or military superiority that gives Alexander reason to fear, but their threatening inertia. Alexander and the medieval Persians, who studied him and feared Gog and Magog, as one domino fears its teetering neighbor. In that way, the wall is more of a physical than political solution. It's a way to keep the bad things over there from becoming bad things over here. You heard the same thing. We've heard the same stories in America, have we not? That the Native Americans chased all of the giants, a lot of them red-haired giants, into the underground and they trapped them there. We've heard that story here in America on this land. So I would ask you again the question I asked you a little while ago. When it talks about four corners, are we talking about the four corners in America? Is that where we actually need to be looking for all of these sites? That's near Joshua Tree, right? What started this whole journey for me and understanding that the Bible was a map. And God knew it. He knew we would be lied to. And if you ask me, that's the grand deception. That's the grand delusion. They want you to think it's this, that, and the other. The people who are getting pushed, right, on YouTube, the ones who get a big following, they're telling you that it's going to be this alien agenda, right? Again, they want to agitate you to the point where you're fighting with God's angels. Stay out of it. It's really not like, until the veil is fully down, it's not for us to communicate with them in that way. We pray to God. We ask him to dispatch his angels. We pray to the angels maybe and ask them to intercede if you believe in that. But we don't talk with them. Not yet, again. Not right now. Right? I think the four corners and a lot of America is the true land of where a lot of these stories, historical events took place. America has been very blessed, much like you would think Israel is. Revelation of the Method shows us that we are always lockstep with whatever Israel does. Israel and America. Israel equals America. USA is inside Jerusalem. Salem is inside Jerusalem. Are you starting to see how they play on all these words and change all these different things? I have something percolating in the background, but I don't want to bring it up yet because I'm not sure how to like. It's one of those things, right? I'm starting to get an idea to like put in here, but I'm not sure where it fits. So I'll keep going. Okay, so that was one thought. Demons and monsters. So now we're going to get to the supernatural perspective. Demons and monsters, or rather the creatures that we call demons and monsters, are most frightening when we construe them as a horde, a headless mass with no individual appeal to empathy, which they don't have anyway. I didn't make that connection between Salem and Jerusalem. Cool. I mean, all these sites like Sin City might very well be like the original Bethlehem or Jerusalem, because Sin City, that's what Satan would rename the holy city. That would be something he would do, especially if we're in Satan's season, right? What's the other one? Jerusalem. Oh, Salem. what better way to ruin the original Jerusalem than to make it Salem with a bunch of legit witches there now? Or at least, even if it's not the actual location, to take the name and make a mockery of it that way. Do you see what I'm saying? We have to start thinking in different ways. This is why I give you sometimes at the beginning of videos short thought experiments, because even if you don't bear them out the whole way, it opens your mind. And it doesn't open your mind to invaders or anything like that. It opens your mind so that you can make connections that maybe you wouldn't have made, right? Because you're in this lane and I'm in this one. Unless we're sharing, you see what I mean? We got to work together that way. All right. Syrians became difficult to demonize only after the body of Aylan Kurdi, a child, was photographed on an otherwise idyllic beach. A politician can't portray Mexican Americans as monsters if he must rely on their votes. But the forces that push immigrants to Europe are complex. So there we go. They're also okay. Which is to say that in Alexander's time and today, a wall remains a cop-out. If legend is to be believed, Alexander's wall will one day be defeated by a common fox. This is fascinating. And this might be where I end this video. Well, I got one more thing to go over if there's time. This is already too long. Okay. Alexander's wall, allegedly, will one day be defeated by a common fox. And I did a little digging into the word fox, but let's stay on track. That fox will ally with Gog and Magog, then send the armies of darkness through the gates. Now, the way he sends because I don't remember where I read it, because like I said, I grab links and I don't read them all because I want you to see any synchronicities or coincidences that come up in lifetime. Something else that they say in another area for the story is that this fox, what happens is one day, for whatever reason, somebody says, well, the gates will open when God wills it. And these are heathens, right? But because somebody says that, the gates are finally open. Because allegedly it's God's will that they remain shut until the end. Fascinating. But who is the fox? What is a fox? A fox is sly. A fox is sneaky. A fox is in the hunt, right? Ali Karju Ravery, whose work focuses on Sufism, which is mystical Islam, also points out that Gog and Magog can be interpreted as analogs for human tendencies, which we already know that, psychologically speaking. All right, and one last thing here. This is fandom. What does the fox say? Indeed. What does the fox say? Isn't that from a nursery rhyme? I'm gonna have to look that up. Sorcerer dragon, like a sorcerer. Gates of Alexander. Now this is from fandom, which I'm such a geek, but I love to go to their wiki. The Gates of Alexander was a legendary barrier supposedly built by Alexander the Great in the Caucasus to keep the uncivilized barbarians of the north, Gog and Magog, from invading the land to the south. Allegedly, there's a southern and northern queen coming into the scene, too. Maybe so. I know it's a song. Ah! According to the Islamic text, Alexander the Great, who is known as Jewel Karnan, meaning two-horned one. We got to look at Daniel for that too. That's going to be in the next video because it's already too long. All right. Journey to the ends of the world where he meets, quote, a people who scarcely understood a word, end quote. People who scarcely understand a word. People who are almost savages themselves. Kind of sounds how Native Americans were portrayed, doesn't it? Who seek his help in building a barrier that will separate them from the people of Gog and Magog who, quote, do great mischief on the earth. And again, our story of the Native Americans pushing the red-headed giants into these underground caverns is almost the exact same. How can that be? He agrees to build it for them, but he warns that when the time comes at the last age, God will remove this barrier. They scratch at their wall each day until they almost break through. Check this out. Every night. Kind of like Katie's. They break for the night, saying, tomorrow we will finish, and each night God restores this. Then one day, as they stop scratching for the night, and this is the prophetic part, one will say, tomorrow we will finish, God willing. And because he adds that part, in the morning it's not restored as with every night. When they do break through, they will be so numerous, quote, that their vanguard is in Syria and their rear is in Khorasan, meaning that's how many will stream out from these underground caverns where they've been barricaded. Another legend claims that Alexander carved prophecies on the face of the gate, marking a date for when these beings, consisting of 24 nations, will breach the gate and subjugate the greater part of the world. That's the day we need to be most concerned about, if that's the time we are in. But we don't know the time we're in. And it makes me wonder, like, okay, the millennial reign, right? Christ is here, he's with his people, blah, blah, blah. He still gives people free will, so obviously something either happens again because Satan gets let out, and somebody must make the choice. So what I'm thinking is, maybe for 990 years, nobody had any children through procreation. And then suddenly, somebody's with child again. And so this new generation that's going to come to be has a choice to make, either God or Satan. But we can't really be told that it's the time of Jesus, because then again, we will choose by default and eventually go astray anyway, because, do you see what I'm saying? That's the only reason I could see for Jesus himself allowing such a deception to take place. So what happens at the end of that 1,000 years? They're still in their city. They're blocked off by everybody else. Everybody else forgets that what happens there? And again, I'm asking because I want to learn. Like, help me figure this out. Okay. The height and scale of the wall is unknown, but it is believed to reach that of the mountains. It is made with blocks and sheets of iron, which is strengthened by molten metal, and the tribes are unable to cross or scale it. I'm wondering if it's a volcano. Isn't there a verse that says something like faith can move mountains? And so when one of these people, one of these heathens, one of these giant cannibals, at the end of the night says, we will finish tomorrow, and adds on, God willing. Do you see what I'm getting at here? Every bit of the Bible is prophetic, and it all like connects. Oh, it's wow. You can see like the tapestry of time. And again, my sense of time is a little skewed compared to other people's. Okay. At first glance, and we know that there was it says molten metal, but we know that it was coated in lead, right? We just read. So molten metal, lead, I don't know. And again, I'm guessing lead has some type of property because they took it out of everything. It must be pretty helpful in something. It says at first glance, in terms of physical means, the gates assumes the formation of two colossal mountain ranges, intersecting with one another as if it were a shut gate. But in the metaphysical sense, it acts as a barrier that holds Gog and Magog at bay and unseen for mortal eyes. The wall, also known as the Caspian Gates, has been identified with two locations. It is either the Pass of Derbent, Russia, or the Pass of Dariel, a gorge forming a pass between Russia and Georgia, with the Caspian Sea to the east. Tradition also connects it to the Great Wall of Gorgon on its southeastern shore. I'm going to keep digging, because I still have the hypothesis that America is the original, like, one land where everything took place. And I don't see how we would flee religious persecution, come here, and then rename things like the Tower of Babel. Like, that's just bad form. Why would we do that? Unless the religious persecution that everybody was fleeing because the Catholic Church was booming in England, unless they were all witches and then they came and settled here, which is what we started to learn in that one book. The series that I have is that politics started as a religious cult. So they weren't escaping religious persecution because they were Christians. It's because, surprise, this is probably why so many people hate me, just on principle alone, and they were all raised to know who they are. Like, it's just so uncool. All right. Let me make sure that's the last bit. Okay, what else did I want to point out? And because this is for the next, we're going to look at this again. So what we need to look for on the map, right? we're going to go to the Great Wall of Gorgon and check that out. But my thoughts are, like, at this point, this thing would be hidden from most people. They don't want people to know about it. It probably might not even have a name. It's going to look like a regular mountain. They might try to keep people away from it with a certain whatever. But it said they're trapped underground. So my summation is that, yes, the gate might come above ground, but their actual location is underground. And so it's a gate that, like, I don't know how to explain it. It comes down, almost like a drawbridge, right? Like at a castle. It comes down like this. So it's above ground when it's open, and when it's closed, it's below ground. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. I try to give visuals. Okay. So my theory is that it would look much like Indiana Jones when he picked out the simple cup and said that would be the cup of a simple farmer. I think we need to look at some of these things the same. By this time, the oxidation would be so strong. They would want to keep people away from there. They would give people some different reason, or they would protect it and call it national or federal land. Maybe even build a building around it so nobody can see the entrance and call it something like, I don't know, Broom Lake, Area 51. Or it could be a volcano at this point. But it's said that the mountains actually, like, are close together. The breasts of the world, remember? That's what it called them. So everybody go out. That's your homework. Go find the breasts of the world. Go. The breasts of the earth. Chop, chop. And comment down below. And if I ever get back to doing things on my laptop, I will show you guys on the map. I had issues with my laptop the other day. Okay, now I could do a story time real quick, but I don't know that I want to do that and tack this on here and make it any longer, so I'm going to save it for its own upload. You guys have a blessed night. Please pray for me as I pray for you. Thank you so much for being here. Be aware, be observant, right? Do no harm, though. Check it out and come back and let me know what you guys think. Where are the boobs of the earth? Where are they? And if Satan's seat is the LHC in Geneva, I would think that these beings wouldn't be too far away. But again, God's the one that had them trapped, so maybe they are far from one another. Let me know what you guys think, and we'll get back to this topic in